Good day, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Just Fish Outdoors. I'm your host, Dale York, and I designed Just Fish Outdoors to focus on freshwater lakes and streams and to provide information, tips, and techniques, along with how-to segments for catching everything from crappie to catfish. We will also provide tips on equipment, tackle, boating, and much, much more. All of this is aimed at helping you catch more fish and have fun doing it. So join us each week as we talk about my favorite subject, fishing. And folks, that'll bring us to our special segment today. I have back in the studio my brother Brian, who's somewhat of a specialist in this particular form of fishing we're going to talk about today. You know, with the temperatures falling, it's not going to be long. We're going to be rolling out of fall into winter. And, we're going to be dipping down in those freezing temperatures. Folks, when that happens, there is one type of fishing that doesn't cool off. Matter of fact, it starts getting hot. And that's the heated fishing dock for crappie fishing. Just getting ready to kick off. Brian, have you had the opportunity to be in one of the docks yet this fall?
Yeah, I've been a little bit, but of course I've been with you out on the lake and stuff in the boat because the water temperature ain't been quite cool enough yet. But yes, fish are definitely now starting to move up underneath the docks and things, putting on the fall feed bag, so to speak, and getting ready for winter.
Yeah, one of the things that, like I said, this type of fishing is just now starting to kick off, and as the water temperatures continue to fall, this type of fishing is just going to get better and better and better. And a couple of things we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about our favorite technique. We kind of grew up doing this with our father. He kind of got us into this many, many years ago, and this is really one of our favorite things to do when it's, 15, 18 degrees outside, and you really don't want to go ripping down the lake at 60 mile an hour in my big Ranger. So, as we get older, we seem to seek that comfort a little more. And, folks, you catch a lot of fish doing this. Brian, what time of year do you think it really starts getting hot in these docks? What do you look for?
It usually kicks off sometime between Halloween and Thanksgiving. Usually in that time frame right there between those two holidays, if you have a dock on your favorite lake or whatever, usually in that time frame is usually when it kicks off.
Go through this late fall type transition where these fish really start showing up in large numbers under these heated docks, in some of the heated docks, I should say. Like I said, our favorite form of fishing for these fish is jig fishing. As the temperatures begin to fall, from the 50s down into the 40s, there's some things you really need to do to increase your chances of catching fish at these docks. One of those things is, having the right equipment. Brian, describe what your a perfect jig rod is for you.
A perfect jig rod, I would have to say, is probably a 5-foot light action rod with a little bit of tip to it. And what I mean by that is just got a little bit of a limber tip to it, spooled with a good high quality 4-pound mono or fluorocarbon, depending on how deep you're fishing. Usually you start off early in the fall, you spool up with monofilament, a good high quality monofilament, and you'll be fine because as a general rule, you're fishing less than 15 foot. Here again, your reel, you can, just sky's the limit when you put a little reel on one of these things. I like kind of the upper echelon type small spinning reels that have 6 to 8 bearings in the drive and a very, very good smooth drag system on them. I think that's probably the most important part of the reel.
I think you're probably right there, especially in the kind of mid to later fall, because you're just as apt to hook something with stripes on it as you are with something with spots on it.
Very much so.
So that's where that really, really good drag comes in handy.
Yes, it's not uncommon to catch sand bass or black bass or
some of those devilfish that they call hybrids.
Some of those things. And folks, let me tell you what, a hybrid in an enclosed environment is not a good thing. Been there, done that.
They will usually gather up more than one rod by the time it's all over and said and done with.
Usually you and everybody else in there is good friends by the time that fish gets done with.
You meet everybody by the time that's over with. You know what? what we're fishing with here is we're usually this time of year and a little bit later, going into late November, sometimes early December, depending on the weather, and what that water temperature looks like. We're throwing 32nd ounce heads. We're usually using bigger baits. We're using 1.5 inch, 1.75 inch, sometimes 2 inch long baits when we're fishing these docks this time of year because, the crappie are predominantly feeding on shad, and they're predominantly feeding on that year's shad. They're looking for big bites. They're looking to gain weight. They're looking to put on as much mass as they can. So and the crappie has a big mouth, folks. Don't forget that. So, it's no problem for them to suck into 2.5 inch bait with no problem.
No. It's matter of fact, as of right now, I recommend fishing the larger plastic type baits when you're crappie fishing for two reasons. Number one, especially if you're fishing in a lake with a length limit on it, it will have a tendency to deter just a little bit those smaller fish. And number two, like Dale said, those bigger fish are looking to, when they suck something up, they want a mouthful. And you fish that bigger bait, as of right now, it's more appealing to the bigger fish.
Yeah, and like Brian said, chances are you're going to get a bigger bite, and this doesn't. It's not limited to dock fishing. I mean, you can do the same thing if you're out on the lake fishing. Use bigger bait and you're good to go.
Yeah, definitely. Get out there, take your good Lowrance electronics, find those brush piles, find those ledges, find those little stump beds and stuff like that out there, and anywhere from 10 to 15, 18 feet of water. Get over the top of them, and the best way to fish these things is to vertical fish for them. Because, we all know, crappie, they're not much on chasing something down and eating it. If you can present that bait in a slower manner close to them, vertical fishing, you're more apt to get bit.
Yeah, and as our water temperatures continue to fall, this presentation is going to become even more and more of a have-to thing. I mean, when that water temperature gets down in the high 30s, there's a lot of times that we'll be dock fishing, and we'll almost be dead sticking that jig.
Yes,
you'll
definitely.
You'll hop it maybe every 20 or 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's just sitting there. And that's when you get your bites, when it's just sitting there sometimes. So as the water temperature continues to decline and get lower and lower and lower, there's some tricks that we use to continue to catch these fish. The dead sticking we talked about is one of them. Another thing that we'll talk about is going down in size. And folks, we will, especially Brian, he does more dock fishing than I do. But one of the really, really neat things or tips that we can pass along to you is as that water temperature continues to decline, one of the things we do to help ensure that we get bites is we continually decrease the size of our jigs.
Well, yeah, definitely. You decrease the size of your jigs, decrease the size of the line that you're fishing with. If situation warrants, I will drop down to 2-pound line in wintertime. And I know, there's a lot of people out there that'll balk and go, there ain't no way I'm fishing 2-pound line. Folks, it's like anything else. If you drop down to something that small, it's a whole lot easier to use if you have equipment that's designed to use it.
Right. Yeah, you got to match your tool to whatever presentation.
Right. And I have a couple of rods there at the house that I use for fishing 2-pound line. They're very soft rods. They're almost as limber on the reel end as they are on the tip end. It's about like fishing with a piece of cooked spaghetti.
Yeah, that's hard to say. Wet noodle comes to mind there when you're fishing that 2-pound line.
And that's the kind of rod that you need to fish this stuff with. In the rod manufacturing business, they call it parabolic action. In other words, it's a full curve almost from the reel seat to the tip. It's almost like a fly rod type.
Yeah, you could literally tighten a knot almost.
Yeah, almost. So, if you want to really get in and do this right, it's like anything else. You got to have tools to do the job with, and this is the type of stuff that you have to have in order to do the job, and have the right rod for the job.
Yeah, and what we're talking about here is, we'll start out, this time of year, a little bit later, we'll start out fishing with 32nd ounce head. And then by the time we hit mid-December or a little later, depending on the weather, maybe in January, but we'll be all the way down to 64th and 80th ounce jigs, marabou jigs that Brian ties, because in many situations, especially if you got high bluebird days where you got high pressure, there's not a lot of wind, if you're not fishing that small stuff, you're not going to get bit. It's just that critical, don't you think?
Oh, definitely. And here's the thing, and I see it all the time, as much dock fishing as I do. I see people get bit and they never know they got bit.
Oh boy, yeah. They can drive you nuts this time.
And they tell you they ain't biting, when you're standing there looking at him and he's gotten 3 strikes while he's talking to you.
Yeah, and that's where when Brian starts talking about this parabolic action, these extremely light action rods, and this light line, that's where this comes in handy. When that water temperature gets really cold, we're talking down, in the low 40s and below, those fish can mouth that jig so light that if you're not paying 110% attention to that line and that rod, and you're not really, really, really tuned in on fishing that jig, you'll never feel that fish take that jig. You'll never feel him.
No, you'll never know he's there. And here's the thing, folks. That time of year, that 2-pound fish can suck that thing in like that, just like that 9-incher can.
Yeah.
And there's virtually no difference sometimes in the bite.
Sometimes that jig you'll just lose the weight on your line.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it'll just get a tad heavier. Yeah. I mean, it is so light. You really have to pay attention.
I've had guys, refer to me as having a psychic connection with my rod. But when you get in tune with these things, and when you're fishing them, and you really focus and pay attention on what you're doing, you'll find yourself catching fish that any other time you wouldn't have caught.
Right.
That's the only way I know to put that.
Yeah, it can, that's one of the things that you really have to do, folks, when you're starting this dock fishing. When we start out this time of year, most of the strikes you get, you won't have any trouble feeling.
Oh, no, they'll funk it good.
And it will be that way until that water temperature many times starts getting down into the mid to low 40s. They're still going to bite pretty good. But when that water temperature gets real low and you have, like I said, those high pressure, high bluebird days, when nothing seems to be stirring inside that dock, that's when you pull out these little bitty jigs and the light line and the light rod, and that's when you really, really, really have to go to work to get these things to bite. And they will do it, but that's one of the best kept secrets around, is going to those little bitty jigs. And if people need some more information on this, or they need to know where to get these jigs, or some of the other things, feel free to drop me an email, justfishoutdoors, justfish.com. You can go to my Facebook page, Just Fish Outdoors, and we'll try to help you out in seeking out some of this equipment. But you've got to have the combination when you start fishing this light stuff of not only the small jigs, but also the light rod and the light line and the match set. I mean, it is so important, right?
Oh, yes. You definitely have to have the lighter the jig you fish, as a general rule, the lighter the line that you're going to need, and you have to have all these things lined up, all your I's dotted and all your T's crossed it's a system. In order to make the system work, you have to have all the parts.
Yeah, and one thing you have to understand as well, as the water temperature continues to decline, in many cases, you're fishing deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So you got several things working against you. You're fishing a lighter jig, you're fishing deeper, and and the fish are striking much, much lighter. So you got all these things.
And in our case, deeper means distance. And the further away that fish is, the harder he is to feel.
Yeah.
So, this is another thing. I know guys that fish grand out of boats in November and December, and some of these guys are catching fish 30 to 40 foot down, and they're using 2-pound line, but they're still fishing 32nd ounce jigs. And the reason for the 2-pound line is for the sensitivity.
Yeah. We've experienced some of that up on SkyTube.
Oh yeah,
in the past,
years past.
Big.
Folks, let me tell you what. If you've never jerked a crappie 35 foot down, it that's a long ways away.
It will sometimes make you wonder that while you're out there, because sometimes they can get really, really hard to catch.
You'll be wanting something other than coffee in that thermos. I guarantee you that.
It can make you reevaluate your love of crappie fishing in the wintertime. That's for sure. That's for sure. Folks, like I said, this type of fishing is just starting to get hot. These are excellent places to take the family in the wintertime to go fishing for an afternoon because they are climate controlled. So, don't. You had a question, Brian?
Well, I was just going to inform the folks, right now the water temperature is up still relatively high. The fish are active. And like Dale said, me and him, we like to jig fish, but right now is the time to use minnows in your dock situation. Those fish keying in on shad real good and everything. The minnow bite is on, and this is a good time to take the family to the dock, and you can buy you a bucket full of minnows and have a good time.
Yeah, and like I said, everyone can enjoy it because it is climate controlled. And so if you need any additional information on dock fishing or things like that, feel free to drop us a line, and we'll try to help you out. Feel free to contact me. My email is justfishoutdoors@justfish.com. And once again, or you can reach me through my Facebook or Twitter pages at Just Fish Outdoors. Send us an email. Tell us how you like the show or how we can improve on it. If you have a suggestion for a topic, let us know, and we'll try to put a show together for you. If you would like to know more about Just Fish Outdoors, or if there's anything we can help you with, just drop us a line, justfishoutdoors@justfish.com. Or you can find us on our Facebook at Just Fish Outdoors. Brian, thanks for coming on the show today. I hope we've helped some folks out on getting ready to enjoy some of that great dock fishing. And folks, get out and enjoy one of the many lakes or streams we're blessed to have. With the fall colors coming on, it's going to be a gorgeous fall. And with the fish biting, it's the perfect time to be out. Thanks for listening, and be sure to catch us next week. This is Dale York, host of Just Fish Outdoors, saying we'll catch you later.